Good morning. This is the November 22nd Jupyter Dev meeting. This is the week of Thanksgiving, so we have a hungry group here. We have a slightly different format on our HackPad. We've moved to partitioning the work summaries by sub-project or feature. So you can see that over at the jupyterhackpad.com. From the project management side, I continue to move things forward on many different fronts, including continuing to work through we have an opening for a tech writer. So we'll have a request for proposals going up on the Berkeley website shortly. So this is a bidded position. Other than that, still doing some wrap up from the dev meeting or the fall project meeting, so folks can expect to see some material out from that in the next week or so. Great. So that's about all I have. It looks like, thanks for taking notes. So the first sub-project on our list is Notebook, and it looks like Thomas will be speaking on that. Take it away, Thomas.
Yeah, so the main thing to make people aware of is we're pushing towards doing a Notebook 4.3 release, which is going to be kind of a roundup of bug fixes and so forth that we've done since 4.2, nothing particularly special, but have a look at the list of issues that are milestone for 4.3 to see if you can fix any, and have a look at the list of issues that aren't milestoned at all to see if you think any of them are important to get fixed for 4.3. And if you do, then preferably fix them. But if not, then still feel free to attach them to the milestone and we'll have a look at them. And then one specific thing that we were working on a pull request to add view and edit buttons for a variety of file types, particularly for HTML, because it's something that you can both view in the browser and edit the raw code in the text editor view. We realized that there was a kind of security concern with the HTML view because it can execute arbitrary JavaScript and talk to a kernel and then run arbitrary code on your computer, which isn't normally what you expect when you view a file. So Kyle has some ideas about how to make that safe using iframes, but we're going to postpone that to a later release to give ourselves a bit more time to work it out.
Thanks, Thomas. Let's see. Next, we have MB format with Min.
Actually, I had a bit to add on to the notebook stuff since it's about project level and not person level.
Okay, sounds good.
Which is partially motivated by some issues from NBConvert. I realized that the way that we're doing header tags is somewhat problematic in terms of some of the IDs that we're generating, and by tags I meant IDs, are not valid HTML4 in the first place, but then also could just in general cause some issues with how characters are interpreted, especially when you do get to the NBConvert level, and not all of the characters, especially punctuation characters, are allowed in IDs, like for tech and whatnot. So I'm thinking that this is probably not something that we want to fix for the 4.3 release, because this is going to break notebooks, because people are currently using the header ID mechanism to have live links in their notebooks. And so some of those, if we want to, even if we wanted to go to sort of the minimal set of changes, are going to break some notebooks somewhere. I don't know how many. I don't know if it's worth trying to figure that out ahead of time. The one thing that's up in the air that I think I agree with Thomas on this, and we talked about it somewhat in a person and on a number of issues, is whether we want to try to take the full pandoc approach in terms of automatically generating header IDs, which involves normalization of the everything to be lowercase, and also what the general rollout for this should be. Kind of wanted some feedback on that.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Hey, folks, can we just do our quality check here on the connection? How are we doing? Can I get thumbs up or? Okay,
Could people not understand me?
I heard you well. That was good.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's just on our end. All right, we will work on that. Great. Anyone else want to share what they've been working on the notebook side? Okay. Min, NB format.
Yeah, so Thomas and I, mostly Thomas actually, have been working on dealing with the signature storage issue with respect to SQLite being unfriendly on NFS. And Thomas put together a proposal for using hash files, kind of like pip caches and the standard way of storing cache things. But because of the sheer number of signatures there's likely to be, that implementation is likely to have some problems on systems such as, for instance, NFS. So we're exploring various ways to improve that, and I think we've come to at least an extensibility model that should allow people to swap out signature storage in a way that'll work and allow people to swap in different implementations for different circumstances. Other than that, the MIME handling for JSON outputs that was discussed at the dev meeting and earlier is pretty much ready to go. So as people have been talking about using those in Interact and Jupyter Lab and places, we need to actually ship a release of the updated NP format spec to avoid people getting validation errors and things. But I did encounter one issue related to putting out a release of NB format, and that's that the attachment spec, which has been released, although nothing that actually uses it has been released, is a little bit wrong in terms of how the spec describes, in terms of the language we use to describe what it does and how the spec is actually implemented. And so we need to figure out exactly what we should do about that. And the gist is that we say that attachments are MIME bundles, but they're not actually there. The way the spec is written, they are the data field of a MIME bundle, which is less than a MIME bundle, which could be a minor issue that we can just clarify some labeling and leave the spec alone, or we should fix the spec to actually say that these are in fact MIME bundles. But I'd like to get a decision on that before we actually release NB format 4.2. Yep. We lose Jamie.
That is Jupyter Hub, release imminent. Nicholas, did you go through that already? Sorry, we're having some sound problems on the line.
That's okay. The next few are actually me as well. Just that several packages are pending release in just like Notebook 4.3, Jupyter Hub, which we put the beta out during the dev meeting. We'll probably release by the end of the week. We found a few more little things to fix, but nothing significant. Here at Simula, working on pushing out a first actual release of NBDime, which mainly needs some work on making sure installation documentation and stuff are well covered, and that and make sure that we do all, since it's one of those Python packages with TypeScript web application bundled in, making sure that all the Estes steps and everything do the right thing. But we're working on that. Should probably have that this week. And then Carlos Cordova is, we're going to help him do a release of Qt console as well. So lots of things ready to release, I think.
Awesome. Thanks. Matthias.
Hey, do you hear me? I have my computer is lagging like hell. I don't know if okay. So I've mostly been working on GitHub automation. They recently released an API that allow you to create a bot that does things on GitHub without doing that as a specific user. And both can have restrict permission that don't have commit right or things like that. And so now I have something on an org of mine that you can mention and can do issue migration for you. And I'm going to improve it a bit so that, for example, we can give some users the ability to tag issue or close issue without giving them commit rights. So I've been mostly working on that this week. I just want to make sure there is no critical bug before making that a little bit more public. And I also want at some point to have the ability to mention this and ask it to backport PR, because right now backporting PR is quite painful. You need to do things on your own computer, which can take some time and is, in my opinion, a limiting factor for why some things have not been backported. And we've also been working with other people on adding a better book section on IPython.org. Just like we had requests to add books, so we added the books, and now there is a page that lists which are the conditions for us to add a book on IPython.org. So there is a link in the iPad, and that's mostly it for me this week. We also discussed with Mike and Thomas about PyCon proposal, and I will expose.
Did you try to toss it to me there? Because I see in the hackpad that my name is next to it, but then all I heard was the word expose.
Yeah, I didn't get a clear cue.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So basically, we were just talking through some of the strategy that we wanted to take toward the PyCon talk about sort of bridging this gap between the Python 2, Python 3 communities by even in the case where we're moving forward on a Python 3 only release of, for example, IPython 6.0, and more generally the Python 3 statement, any of the packages that are agreeing to that, what we're putting into place so that we don't break things for Python 2 users who, for example, try to upgrade. And there's a repo in the Python 3 statement that has a early partial draft from Matthias, as well as some notes from the meeting that we took. And there isn't much else right now that I think is concrete about that. Thomas, since Matthias tossed to me, did you have anything that you wanted to throw in?
No, I don't think so at this point.
Sounds good.
Who's up next?
Actually, I'm going to encourage a tutorial submission from the team on either Jupyter Hub or Jupyter Lab or something, because Ruben and Alan and I are co-chairing tutorials, and it would be nice to have one that is from the Jupyter team, because I don't think we had one from the team last year.
I think there is 8 days left, and it's going to be a bit tough to submit a tutorial by November 30.
I can help.
We've submitted tutorials lots of places, so I think if we just decide what we want to do, we can talk about this on the email list. But if that makes sense, we can definitely pick something and put together a tutorial this week.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. I like it. Who's up next? News items for Jupyter Hub projects. Is that a thing? Thomas?
Somebody wrote those up.
This was just something that I put together, just looking at last week, just sort of what some of the new things were in the Jupyter Hub world.
Got it. So I see your name now, Carol. Sorry. It was overshadowed by large type in bold. So started an experimental repo for Jupyter Hub project, weekly highlights, and team communication. So that's a place where folks, we've been having some sound issues, so sorry if you said this already, folks on the call. But so this is a place where anyone on the team can go to see what's going on with Jupyter Hub. And
right now it's just a kind of work in process to see what format might work within the Jupyter Hub team.
Gotcha.
And then as folks figure out what is going to be the way that we do the whole team-wide communication, the thinking is maybe we take some snippet of it, not the whole thing, but to be determined. It was more just putting a stake in the ground.
Cool. I like it. I like steak. So, this actually reminds me of one idea that I had. One request that we had before the project meeting was some tutorials for the rest of the team. So folks working on like Jupyter Lab could get caught up on Jupyter Hub, and folks working on Jupyter Hub can learn more about Jupyter Lab. So I'm thinking maybe it would be worthwhile to schedule some, just periodic tutorials for the team that are open, where we could do demos and just do walkthroughs for folks to just kind of to help get them over the hump of like installing whatever it is, whatever sub-project we're looking at. So we can kind of do some internal communication and education as well to help bring the folks on the team who are interested in all the other sub-projects that are going on to give them, a little bit of a head start in learning about that. So if that's something you'd be interested in, please reach out to me. I've reached out to Jason Grout and Grant Nestor to do a demo on some of the GitHub project management tools that they've been using to help spur other ideas on the team for how to manage issues and work through some of that stuff. And it sounds like if I heard maybe every 4 or 5 words from Matthias, but if that's some of the stuff that Matthias is working on as well, Matthias, you could also share some of the work that you're doing. Cool. All right. So it looks like Ian is next.
Yeah, so I just got back from spending the week at University of Washington at the GeoHack Week event, where I was the Jupyter ambassador and overall helper. I gave a little tutorial. So not a whole lot to report other than that. If anybody is really interested in geospatial analysis, got to see some pretty cool tools, including if anybody wants to do massively parallel geospatial analysis with Google Earth Engine. It's a pretty neat tool, so I recommend checking that out.
Ooh, mapping the world. Great. Can you scroll down there? See who else? Or who's up next? IPython. Michael?
All right. This is a challenge because my notes are in another window and I normally hold down space to be able to talk.
I know. I've been there. Yeah.
So continuing to move forward on the EPUB exporter. Part of that is the stuff that I already talked about with regards to the notebook. Also, there's some more general issues with being able to source files and whatnot, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And I might have come across a sort of solution that more generally might work for a lot of the different exporters, particularly the ones that need to rely on external media files and that can't be embedded, at least not immediately. So, and then there's some other things. I started moving away from using the IPython genutils for the temporary directory code, I also realized that in general, we're supposed to be moving away from IPython genutils. I don't know how much of a priority that is, but I'd also started a quick sort of automated project management type thing where you could generate a list of all a nice GitHub flavored markdown like checkpoint list for all of the links. Thomas wasn't a huge fan of it, so I'm probably not going to continue moving forward on it. But if that is a priority, then that is something that we should probably revisit at a future meeting, because at least as far as I can tell, there's not been too much movement in that regard, given that I hadn't even known that it was something we were trying to do until I happened upon some code that said that. And then, yeah, there's the hyperlink stuff, but yeah, that's it.
Well, just a little background on the genutil stuff. So that let's say fell out of the big split, that there were a few common utilities that we couldn't quite figure out where they should live, or they didn't fit in the dependency graph, and they were kind of generic things, but we didn't want to be responsible for maintaining like a generic utilities library. But it exists, it's there, it works, and unless something unforeseen happens, it will never see another release. So there's no pressure, there's not a lot of pressure to remove it without some other input, but it's something that, so if you're going to update something, we would like to not increase the use of it. And if anything in there doesn't do what you want, we shouldn't fix it there, we should use something else. But there's not a lot of pressure to remove it.
Okay, got it.
For its own sake.
That sounds totally reasonable.
All right. What else do we have for today? Nick, is there anything you'd like to share with the group? Sorry to call you out. No.
So yeah, I made some more progress. I can't get to my terminal right now, so I haven't pushed it up. But I don't know. Sometimes it just beach balls and I can't do anything. But I can talk to you guys. So I've got a pattern in place for building the different excursions of installation. So right now it's all based on base notebook or minimal notebook, or whichever one's smaller. And it tests Python, or it tests IPython as installed with Conda. It's kind of hard to fake installing it with pip, but I'll probably have a more vanilla example of that, installing it on different platforms. But so what it does is it looks through all the metadata, finds all the things we got for different kernels, and then builds a Docker file for each of them. And so I think by the end of it, a kernel maintainer should only have to create, a couple, 3 or 4 files in order to tie into the test machinery. So let's move forward. Albeit slowly, because R takes forever to install.
Yeah, cool. Let's see. We haven't heard from Pete today. But Pete's here. Hi, Pete. I don't know if you want to share anything with us today.
Hi. Yeah, just little odds and ends since coming back from the conference, mostly focusing on paid work. So, yeah, I did make a little progress on the Jupyter Hub Kerberos example, and did a local deployment of the Jupyter Hub 0.7 beta, and opened a couple of issues like Min mentioned, but otherwise it seems to be working well, so it has my vote for release. Other than that, just answering a few issues here and there, nothing major going on.
Thanks for that. Damian's on the call as well. I know sometimes he's not in a place where he can speak, but I want to say hi, Damian. Great seeing you the other week. Okay. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. It's essentially, I just got back from US on Saturday. I was last week at the office, and so just really starting to take things here at home.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, I think that's everyone. If I missed you, please speak up. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Or this week peas, I think, with Thanksgiving coming up. I have the worst dad jokes ever, so they just flow off my tongue the more comfortable I am with a group. So just apologize for any bad joke I make from here on out. Great. Okay, guys. Well, thanks so much for connecting with us today. It's great to see you all. And have a great Thanksgiving.